Virginia is a 23.5 point underdog going into tomorrow night's game with North Carolina, number 10 in the country. But that is what it is. Tony Elliott, Virginia coach, is trying to remind his guys what happened last year when these two teams met. It was only a 3-point game, 31-28 final. Quoting Coach Elliott from his press conference earlier this week, for us, it's about opportunity and having confidence that they return a lot of guys. We return a lot of guys. We got some new additions, and last year this was a 3-point game. It was a possession for possession game, and that's true. Looking back at the play-by-play for that one in a 31-28 loss, UVA led 14-10 at the half. North Carolina took the lead on the first drive of the second half with a touchdown. But Virginia responded, 10 plays, 75 yards, Ronnie Walker, 1-yard TD to go back on top. Then North Carolina went and scored 2 touchdowns in a row. Virginia made it close in the end and ran out of time. And so in that game, though, it wasn't a fluke. I mean, you look at it, look at the stats. Virginia gained 418 yards of offense on the day in that game, and that was without the big three. Keaton Thompson, Dontavian Wicks, the late Lavelle Davis Jr. Were all out of the game in that one. And in spite of that, Brennan Armstrong was able to throw for 232 yards. Virginia gained 186 on the ground. This was a team that last year, just like this year, had trouble running the ball, averaged just 123.1 yards per game on the ground. But Virginia last year was able to gain 186. Mike Hollins, 75 yards in that game to lead the way. I think Brennan Armstrong also had 64 yards, including a gritty touchdown run towards the end. Now, this year's Carolina defense, a lot better than last year's defense. So when Tony Elliott talks about there's a lot of the same guys, one big difference. Last year, North Carolina was last in the ACC in total defense, 436.5 yards per game. This year, a lot better, 459.7 yards per game. And last year, the defense also was last at North Carolina. The defense was last, allowing an ACC worst 30.8 points per game. This year, UNC is giving up 21.0 points per game. The offense, of course, has the same guy at quarterback, Drake May. Started the season as a Heisman Trophy candidate. I'm not sure if he's there now. Only 12 TD passes, but 2 per game. But yeah, that's probably not going to get it done. He's averaging 317 yards a game, which leads the ACC. But whether or not he's going to win the Heisman, Drake May is going to be a top pick at quarterback, a top pick in the NFL draft as a quarterback in the next NFL draft. I assume he's going to declare, but we'll see how that goes. Right, he could still stay another year. One difference for Carolina on offense this year is they have a much better running game. Marion Hampton is averaging 109.7 yards per game on the ground, leading the ACC in that category. So you got the leading passer in the ACC, the leading rusher in the ACC. Carolina's second in the ACC in total offense, over 500 yards per game, 501.3. And they've put up at least 31 points in all 6 of their games this year. And they're just now getting to full strength. The NCAA famously dawdled on the case of star transfer wideout Devontae Walker, initially ruling that he could not be eligible this year because he had transferred twice from NC Central, where he never even played the school that year. The program that year didn't play football because of COVID. Transferred from there, I think it was to Kent State, and then transferred from Kent State to North Carolina. And the reason for that was he wanted to come home. At least that's the stated reason. He's also he's better than NC Central. He's better than Kent State as far as the quality of his play. Well, he was finally ruled eligible ahead of the Syracuse game last week in his second game back. 6 catches, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also in that game, Hampton, the running back who leads the ACC, 197 yards on the ground. That was over in the win over Miami, a 41-31 win. Miami, even with giving up 508 yards of offense to North Carolina, still ranks 3rd in the ACC in total defense, giving up just 308.3 yards per game. Carolina put some points and numbers up against a really good defense in Miami. And so it'll be a challenge. It's a different Carolina team, certainly in that respect. The one advantage for Virginia is that the Cavaliers are coming off their bye week, and they've been playing relatively well of late, comparatively for a 1-5 team. Apologies for the allergies. The one win of the season is in the last game. It was over William & Mary, an FCS school, 27-13 final. The final score doesn't really indicate how close that game was. It was a tight game in the fourth quarter. But for a 1-5 team, Virginia, before those two, had lost on a walk-off field goal to NC State on a Friday night in September in Charlottesville, then lost on a field goal in the last couple of minutes at Boston College. and also the 1 point loss to JMU. This is a team that's 1-5, but it could be deceptive 1-5. And so that's the message from Tony Elliott to his team. Basically, they've been in games in the fourth quarter in 3 games. Actually, I would even throw in the Maryland game, 42-14 final. Also, the final score not really telling us how that game was played. It was 21-14 going into the fourth quarter. First play of the fourth quarter, I believe, was the first play. Anthony Calandria threw an interception in the end zone. That on a pass that certainly could have tied the game up or put Virginia in position to tie the game up in the fourth quarter. So they've been in the game in the fourth quarter of games. That's 4 straight weeks. The only a game where they were not in a game in the second half at all was Tennessee, and so it's prime time. It's on the road. This is quoting Coach Elliott. It's prime time at 6:30. It's on the road. Top 10 team. This is what you dream about when you're a kid. These are the moments you want to be in. We're not going to make it something bigger than what it is, but be truly understanding what the opportunity is. This is an opportunity for the Virginia team. 23.5-point underdog. And yet it's an opportunity for Virginia to maybe shock the world. I'm not sure I see Virginia winning this game. A lot would have to go right, including, fixing the obvious problems that even though Virginia's been in the fourth quarter of games against some teams that they could have beaten if, making a play here and there, the offensive line is among the worst in the country. The defensive line has 5 sacks in 6 games. And not a lot of pressures outside of those sacks. The secondary is banged up. The defense in general, just a walking wounded on that side of the ball. And so, it's hard to fix those problems in a week or two. Virginia even went the bye week, but certainly, a chance for Virginia to be competitive. And hey, who knows? Could be a trap game for North Carolina as far as that goes. The 6:30 start Saturday night. The game is in Chapel Hill. For those of you not going, raise my hand. I'm not going either. The game will be on the CW network. So a lot of commercials featuring that show F-Boy Island, which, lots of 3-minute breaks that will give us the interesting content on the CW network. But go to Augusta Free Press, check out. We've got a lot of pregame coverage from myself. Also, Scott Ratcliffe contributing a couple of nice preview stories, but looking in depth at North Carolina, then talking with UVA coordinators Des Kitchings and John Rudzinski. If you have any questions for me, if you have any topics, anything for the mailbag, please email me at chris@augustafreepress.com. Until then, wahoo-wah.